Pro Football player Travis Kelce is pressed for time during the football season. So he does two things at once. Whether it's grilling while mowing.
Two things at once!
Or getting this season's updated COVID-19 shot at the same visit as his flu shot.
Two things at once.
You can be like Travis and ask your pharmacist about getting this season's COVID-19 shot at the same visit as your flu shot, if you're due for both, as recommended by the CDC. Learn more and schedule at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
My brother-in-law died suddenly, and now my sister and her kids have to sell their home. That's why I told my husband we could not put off getting life insurance any longer. An agent offered us a 10-year, $500,000 policy for nearly $50 a month. Then we called SelectQuote. SelectQuote found us identical coverage for only $19 a month, a savings of $369 a year.
Whether you need a $500,000 policy or a $5 million policy, SelectQuote could save you more than 50% on term life insurance.
For your free quote, go to SelectQuote.com. SelectQuote.com. That's SelectQuote.com.
SelectQuote. We shop. You save. Full details on example policies at SelectQuote.com/commercials.
Thanks for tuning into our podcast. We love having you here, and it's our mission to bring you all the latest and greatest tips, skills, and know-how to make you the best that you can be. We know that you have it in you, and we're going to show you how. Now, let's get started.
This episode is powered by Poddex.
Thank you for tuning in today. You are now listening to That Will Never Work podcast with your host, Maurice Chisholm. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in today. I have a special guest today. I'm really excited. A really upbeat individual who's going to talk to us about our why. I find that we lose our why periodically as we're trying to develop our businesses, and we get over anxious or stressed because we're trying to make things happen, and we lose our why in the process. So today our guest is going to talk about that. He is a creator at heart. He's a jiu-jitsu purple belt, and a lover of all things water. He started his entrepreneurial journey after graduating the University of Nevada, Reno, with a degree in biochemistry. So how many of you have started off on that type of path and pivoted based off of changes and whatnot? And again, understanding your why. He talks about scaling businesses to 7 figures, doing 3,000 to 4,000 sales consultations. He was frustrated with the way sales were being taught, again, understanding your why of why you're on this entrepreneurial journey. And ultimately, this gentleman, I'm not going to get into a whole lot. You could read his bio. He's going to share all his information. But also we're going to talk about that he is a proud father of a daughter, which I can truly understand. All of you know that I have a daughter also, and, he's going to talk about her age, and my daughter, she's in college, so I kind of miss those days. I really do. So I bring to all of you today, Mr. Chandler Walker.
Yeah, so I'll take her. I taught her to snorkel when she was about 2 years old,
Wow.
so she can go out, and we go out in Hawaii quite a bit, and we'll get a boat, go out in the middle of the ocean, put a snorkel on her. She gets in the ocean. I mean, obviously swim right next to her.
Right.
But we both go out and snorkel, and she gets under, and sometimes the waves are pretty high, and she knows to keep the snorkel in her mouth, and
Nice.
so the waves go over, but they don't go over the snorkel. So she snorkels with me. We go out and hit the surf, and so she sits on the front of the surfboard, and I'll go hit the waves and all that stuff. And we fall over, and I grab her and hold her up. But it's really neat to have taught this tiny little person all these water sports and all these water activities, and she's willing to actually go out there with me. And so it turns out to be this like little tiny best friend you never knew you needed.
Right.
This is awesome. Please never grow up.
Right. So something that you had mentioned, talking about, being in the water and the waves and whatnot. So, how was someone that's going through business and going through those waves, if you will, just trying to learn how to adjust in business, what are some of the things or principles or pillars that you would like people to focus on as they're navigating through this entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I think the first mistake that entrepreneurs make is thinking that they're the only one who can do the job, or they're the only one who can do it right or well. Because what that does is it moves you into a position to where you essentially buy yourself a low-end job. Some of these entrepreneurs I see working 100 hours a week, it's, okay, you've bought yourself the position to work in a 25-cent an hour job, which is not even legal. It's not even minimum wage you're paying yourself. So I think what you have to do at some point is learn, and I learned this the hard way. My first year in business, we got up at 3 or 4 in the morning, and we didn't go to bed till like midnight. We had a brick and mortar. And so it's a lot different having a brick and mortar than like an online business, because you have overhead, you have the toilets, the janitor, staff. If you don't pay that stuff, you get shut down.
Right.
And so I had to learn after the first year. During the first year, I was basically doing everything by myself and my partner, who's also my significant other. We haven't killed each other yet. We have a daughter, so we're on a good path so far. But what I learned after that first year was I can't do everything, and it's not possible for me to do everything, because if I try to do everything, the business is going to stay stagnant. It's not going to grow. I'm going to get burnt out, and everybody's going to lose. So I think the first pillar and tenet you have to look at is replacing yourself and the processes you shouldn't be doing. So as an entrepreneur, I look at processes in 3 different domains: red, yellow, and green.
Okay.
Red tasks are ultimately what I need to be doing every day. Yellow tasks are kind of in the middle, and green tasks are going to go to an executive assistant, a VA, anybody but me, because they're tasks that I don't need to be doing. They waste a lot of time, but they aren't that productive, and they don't quantify or magnify growth or revenue.
Wow. So where did you come up with the idea to label these as this red, yellow, and green? Because I think that's rather unique. I've never heard it expressed that way, but what influenced you to task it that way, or to label it that way?
Yeah, I think a lot of the way I think comes down to the fact that I studied biochemistry in college, so I'm a giant science nerd. So everything I do follows the scientific method. If I can hypothesize and test, and hypothesize again and test, and create simplicity out of complexity and peace out of madness, then I'm in a good place. And so when I was kind of trying to figure out how to organize, I thought to myself, what's the easiest, most simple way to figure this out? What's the easiest, most simple way to put my business in a place to where I can essentially map my time out every day? And so that kind of, in the beginning, introduced me to like Pomoto stuff. It's break your day up into blocks, work 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. And so I still wanted to take that and reduce complexity even more. And so then I started saying, okay, what if I color code it? What if it's like red light, green light, yellow light? That would be perfect.
Right.
So then I made it, and now it's like first grade level, but it's like college level awesome. So at this point, it works really well. And you tell someone, you have red task, yellow task, green task. Which ones are the hardest? Which ones are in the middle? And which ones are just meaningless and you shouldn't be doing? And all of a sudden, they can magically come up with a whole list.
Wow. So as I'm listening to you talk about just breaking it down to a simplest form, like you said, it's a first grade level with college level awesomeness, if you will, or strategy. So how does that deal with something that you talk about where you're focused on the 6 key pillars of wellness? How does that affect your mental health and sleep and nutrition, just being able to break things down to its simplest form?
Yeah, when you think about entrepreneurship in its purest form, there's no book on how to do it. There's no manual on how to just start your business and you're good to go unless you open a franchise. And so I think when entrepreneurs begin, they go into this overthinking pattern, and it takes them into this place of, it's like a roller coaster of madness, ups and downs, ins and outs, too many things to think about, too many things to do, and they don't know how to self-manage. And so when I was on the journey, our original business is a health business. We help people in these 6 key areas of wellness. So I started looking at this as an entrepreneurial path to wellness. And I've actually added a new pillar recently. So we have 7 at this point.
Okay.
So at some point we may have hundreds, even though I'm all about simplicity.
Right.
But what I figured out was you have to follow these pillars in order or you're going to wreck your whole life. And so the way they worked was, number one, first pillar you had to follow was mental health. Because if your thoughts aren't organized, if you're a disaster, if you can't get yourself together, if your internal thoughts are a mess and you're depressed, deprived, and just not there, nothing else is going to work. And your personal problems become business problems and everything will suffer and crumble. And then the next piece I looked at was social health. If your social dynamics aren't there, if people are telling you you're not going to make it, if people are telling you you suck, if your family doesn't support you, if you don't think anybody cares about you, and you don't have that social dynamic, you're going to be lonely and depressed and get burnout and going to want to quit. So second thing we had to fix was our social dynamics. What are the positive, neutral, and destructive environments that we're in? And then the third one I looked at was sleep. Chronically, entrepreneurs are deprived of sleep. It's the one industry to where you can guarantee that nobody's sleeping because they want to quote unquote hustle.
Right.
And I call that the pray you make it strategy, which doesn't really work that well.
Okay.
So we have to get our sleep in order to be able to be creative, to be able to think, to be able to lead and manage, to be rational and not emotional. And then the next pillar I looked at, which is a new pillar, is wealth. Most entrepreneurs don't manage their money. They don't even know how to pay themselves. They don't know how to put money away for taxes. At the end of the year, it's just a complete disaster. So we have to be able to not only manage our wealth in the current state and time, but manage the pathway to wealth. So should you want to retire, you're capable of it, because most business owners, unfortunately, won't be able to sell their business. Only like 1% actually do. So you have to set yourself up to be okay if you can't do that. Okay, and have something that's set aside to be able to support you in the end. And then the last two pillars I looked at are nutrition and fitness. Take care of yourself in terms of your nutrition. Doesn't mean you have to follow like the 48-hour Hollywood cookie diet or the keto diet or be a vegan or any of that. Just take care of yourself in terms of nutrition, and your body will benefit, and you'll survive long-term and you won't get sick. And the last piece is fitness. There's so many good things surrounding fitness that allow you to release dopamine, different hormones that make you feel better. It increases bone density so you don't hurt and you live longer. And so ultimately those 7 key areas are what I found that makes someone truly, quote unquote, well.
Wow. Thank you very much for that information. But, you know, one of the things that I know that for myself, especially beginning, was that mental health and that social health. Because in certain, when you're trying to sell to your what's called your warm market or your hot market, if you will, as you're talking about your business plans and things like that, sometimes those that are closest to you are not always supporting you in your process or in your journey. Not always. And those are the ones that you expect, if you will. And as you stated, also your business partner being your spouse, if you will, sometimes people have those challenges also. So do you have any things out there for those individuals that might be challenged by that, whether it's just being able to talk it out and develop a healthy sense of communication or anything like, do you have any nuggets about some stuff like that?
Yeah, in terms of like working with your spouse.
Yeah, or anyone that's close to you, or even just taking in the information that they're receiving from them, where someone's saying, no, you can't do that or whatever. You have any pointers of just how people can kind of maybe get over those humps? Yeah,
that's a good question. And that comes down to communication. I think one of the things we fundamentally don't do well as human beings is communicate. We let our egos get in play. We start to believe whatever's said. But I think what we have to do is learn to question the words that come out of other people's mouths, because the whole idea of just ignore it doesn't work. Because if people keep saying it, you start to believe it. It's inception of the mind. So if someone says this is never going to work, you have to look at it and say, well, let's examine the evidence. And this is a technique I learned in cognitive behavior therapy when I was kind of building our mental health side of things. So you examine the evidence. Well, this person is saying it won't work. Where are they coming from? Do they have expertise? No. Okay, well, then how would they know it's not going to work?
Right.
Well, they don't. Okay, well, then why are they telling me it's not going to work? Well, they might be afraid. Okay, well, why are they afraid? Well, they're afraid either I'm going to fail and they're afraid for me, or they're afraid that I might succeed and they're going to be stuck where they're at and continue to be miserable or continue to be in this position. And so I think if we learn to question and analyze the words that come out of people's mouths and step into their own head and become what I call a level 5 listener, which is an empathetic listener, we can ultimately begin to understand why people say things. A lot of the times when people say things, it does come from a place of love, care, and concern. It just sometimes doesn't sound that way.
Right.
And so someone saying this will never work really means I'm afraid for you because if you fail, you're going to get hurt, or I'm afraid that you're going to succeed and I'm still going to be stuck here.
Wow. So first I would like to say thank you for, giving the meaning to my podcast, That Will Never Work podcast, because a lot of times people are saying that to you, and I was told that a lot, which is why I call that phrase, I call this podcast that phrase, because I was determined to do something positive, change the mindset, if you will. As we're talking about just that mental health, people can as they're talking, you hear what people have to say. Sometimes we can overanalyze, if you will, and read too deep into it because of our emotions and who that role that individual is talking to us. We put maybe too much emphasis on that particular role in that that person's life in our lives. So I think sometimes those type of things influence how we're viewing and how we're listening, and then ultimately how it affects maybe how we're sleeping or eating because, we're under stress, things like that. So I think, some of these key pillars that you're putting out there, one fits the next into our entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, exactly. Each piece leads into the next piece, and it has a snowball impact to where you start to master and really understand one piece, and then you move to the next piece, and all of a sudden you have this big piece of pie you've created, this big snowball, for lack of a better term, that starts to build and starts to grow your life and starts to make things better. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I'm managing myself. I manage my life. Things feel good. The universe has got to explode at this point.
Right. Yeah. So thank you very much for your tidbits today. Would you like to share with our, before we go, would you like to share with our listeners where they might be able to find you? Also, I want everyone to know to when you go to his information, there's a great download that I downloaded called 9 Steps to Compassion Conversations, but I'll let him talk to you. Mr. Walker, let us know where they can find you.
Yeah, if you're interested in learning more about our 7 pillars of entrepreneurial wellness, just DM me on Instagram. My Instagram is instagram.com/Chandler_SAF. You can't miss me. It's me and my daughter with surfboards and stuff. And I have a man bun in the pictures. I look like a total Hawaiian guy. So you definitely can't miss me. My name is Chandler Walker on there. And then YouTube, if you want to watch my videos where I talk a lot about wealth strategies and wellness and business, just go to youtube.com/Chandler Walker SAF. Chandler, like from Friends, Walker, like the Texas Ranger, and then SAF is our business Stone Age Fuel. And then the last thing that you mentioned is our 9 steps to creating compassion conversations, our psychotherapeutic sales system, where we teach you how to sell without manipulation, aggressive tactics, or feeling salesy. Just go to 9step.cultureofcare.life. That's the number 9step.cultureofcare.life.
Wow. Chandler, man, I really appreciate your knowledge and your information today, man. I really appreciate you. I appreciate how we've been able to talk about our children and understanding our why as we move forward through this entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, happy to be here. Happy to provide some value. Hopefully we gave some people some heartfelt moments and some ideas on how to propel their business, propel their lives, and take off on this rocket ship to the moon.
Right. Thank you very much. Well, but before we go, as I ask every guest on our show, our would you rather question. So, would you rather pick 3 doors or face a fork in the road?
Well, this comes back to me being a giant science nerd. So I would rather pick 3 doors because I would hypothesize which door is best. Then I would pick the first door. If that door didn't work, then I would hypothesize why, and I would adjust, and then I would figure out how to pick the next door. And so I would just whittle it down until I figure out the one that makes the most sense and the one that has the most probable opportunity for success. And there's the analytical side of me.
Wow. Wow. Thank you very much. It's interesting. Everyone answers that question very differently.
I bet.
Yeah,
fun question.
They do. But Chandler, thank you very much for joining us today. And make sure everyone to follow him on his social media, go to his website, and I will talk to you all a little later. Thank you.
Loved what you've heard on this week's episode? Well, the answer is simple. It would mean the world to us if you could head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review and feedback. Spreading the word really is the best way to grow our podcast and achieve even greater things. Thank you.
Okay, round 2. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, oh, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.